Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode of Party Talk, where we empower leaders in youth drug prevention. I'm Jake White, your host, and today I got to talk with Donnie Otto Bantle, the Assistant Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life at Purdue University. I love this conversation because it highlights the different perspectives within our field, and honestly, one right here in a population that's really high risk, Greek life in colleges and universities. And not only that, at one of the prestigious universities in our country, Purdue. And I loved my conversation with Donnie because it can show the care you can give students no matter where they are, if they're using drugs and alcohol to party and have fun, or whether that makes them uncomfortable. We talk about it all, so please enjoy this episode of Party Talk. Just to kind of get started, can you take me from your experience, because I know you're working heavily in Greek life right now, so kind of what your role looks like right now and the day-to-day things that you're doing to help out with that community?
Yeah, for sure. So my job is a lot of different things at once. Kind of goes on a needs base, different things every day. But the core of it is I like to view mine as like comprehensive wellness. A lot of the times we're focusing on the physical, which is just making sure we're not harming one another and we're providing safe spaces. So Purdue is actually really great because we have really strong system of accountability and event procedures, I guess you can call them. We call it SARMA. It's like I don't really remember the acronym. We have so many acronyms at Purdue.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a we make sure that there's a lot of policies and practices and building culture in the place to make all of our events, whether that's with alcohol or not, safe spaces. And if they're not following those policies, those parties, or we call them functions, are canceled or shut down, and then they have to go through the judicial process. But we have a campus safety committee for any sort of event that's uh, just happening, that include contracts or any sort of harm. So, during like a pie in the face fundraiser, making sure that you're not using, you know, cream that's gonna cause allergic reactions to people.
Okay.
All the way to when we have, a barn dance that has drinking, bartenders, transportation, like all the way to the team, making sure that things, are going super well.
Yeah.
That's kind of the main gist, but for me individually, I have also a portfolio of chapters that I work with individually with their leadership. So any issues that they're going through, whether that's mental health, body image, alcohol abuse, sexual assault, whatever those things are, then we kind of cater that conversation around like how can we support your members through those sorts of things, um, and address it in a way that makes sense for that organization. So we do a yearly survey to all members, and they select which organization and they're in. The survey is anonymous, so it kind of goes through what kind of issues that they're seeing within their chapter and then the community, and then we're able to show that to their leadership and say, hey, here's all the issues that they're probably not talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and these are what your actual issues are. It's not, oh, we don't get along because we didn't have the right t-shirt color, or we didn't get to pick my bid day theme, or just like a lot of different random things that don't really matter, but
Yeah.
the problems that kind of come from being in a campus culture, because sometimes chapter presidents will come to me and be like, am I causing this? Is our chapter like why is this so bad? I'm like, well, it's actually not bad in comparison. Sometimes it is, but like the campus culture, especially around rape culture, like
Mhm.
that's how it is, not just for fraternities, sororities, but it's for the whole campus.
Mhm.
So that gives us a good leverage and opportunity, like to be able to talk through those hard conversations, do workshopping, programming, talking to individual members and help them get individual resources, whether that's on campus resources or referring them to hotlines or off campus resources to help them individually. So
Okay.
It's a lot of different things. It really
Yeah.
depends what people are bringing to the table. But I would say the wellness piece, because when I work with leaders as well, like I like to talk about their individual wellness because sometimes they're getting the whole wrath of everything that's at them. It's like I
Yeah.
know they're not doing it, but they're feeling the weight of everything. So I try to make sure that they're following a plan of the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Okay. Wow. So that's really cool that you can be there to kind of highlight some of the things to keep them safe, to build community in healthy ways. And I mean, because you were in Greek life at UW Oshkosh, I remember that. What was it that made you want to stay in this field?
Good question. I think it is the sense of community and being able to make an impact and a change. Not even necessarily to like an outside of the community perspective, but like the individual impact it has on people.
Yeah.
Because I tell my students this all the time. We have these things called pledge class parties where they'll bunch of them that just are only 18 or 19 all get together, just drink with them, and it's an unregistered function. And I tell them, well, if you the only outlet that you're providing them is like alcohol or no alcohol, I'd probably go the alcohol route. I mean, I didn't drink when I was 18 or 19, but I had opportunities to connect with others without drinking.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, you need to be planning more things. So like you can do game nights, you can do movie night. Like
Yeah.
there's so many free things too. And you probably spend a lot less money on doing some of these things than buying alcohol and still just have
Yeah.
the same amount of fun. So I think the personal impact it had to me and like being able to have other people's share that experience that I did, obviously in a very different way. Purdue and Oshkosh are very different cultures. But being able to have them make connections and kind of learn and grow through decisions that they
Yeah. One of the things that I've been hearing, and I haven't necessarily been seeing this, but I've been hearing it, that students aren't necessarily using alcohol as much. They're using marijuana, cannabis plant products and things like that, THC in their vaping products and stuff like that. Is that part of it, or is alcohol still like the main party outlet in Greek life?
it it's still, I would say, be the alcohol piece. The only difference I would say is like the access to marijuana would be you see more like people using both.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna use one or the other, or literally gonna use both tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
And that presents its own issues as well. Like here it's not legal, so that's a legal issue, and
Hmm.
most of them are underage, so they couldn't even buy it. So that's two. And then three, just the mixing of substances, just
Not a great idea.
never really great.
Yeah. What do you do if students are caught and they break the rules and their guidelines for being a part of your community, and they're found with, an illegal substance, or if they've kind of
Yeah.
broken the event rules? What happens?
Yeah, so there's like different routes. So if it's at like an official or an unofficial event that could be deemed as an event by an organization, they'll go through an organizational judicial process. If the individual report was like sent to the university and we have a name, that person's gonna go through individual conduct. There are dean of students. I don't touch that.
Yeah.
And then we have a really nice culture here of reporting student concerns report. It's not necessarily like, oh, we want to get you in trouble, but like whenever you're worried about someone. So if someone's drinking 5 times a week, binge drinking, and I think it's like a new pattern, you can write a student concern report, goes to our dean of students office. They get to talk to the student and kind of see what's going on and kind of triage the help and care. And we have a really great system because I feel like other universities, like people are afraid to call 911 if someone's too intoxicated. Some people are just afraid to talk about it because, that's just the culture of how their family grew up.
Mhm.
But here, the amount of it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like the fact that we get people using the system's great, but when we have a lot of people using the system, it's like, oh, a lot of bad things are happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, just for students today and what they're going through. One of the things just from the students who maybe graduated during that time of COVID and maybe were isolated, didn't get to go to school. Are you seeing anything come out of that as far as in your community? You said they have a survey, they're good about being vocal and sharing what they're going through. What would you say students in your community are going through, or like have challenges with these days?
I think there's three main themes I'm seeing. So the first one, the first issue being I don't know how to interact with people in a healthy manner because I didn't get to see that, and like your social development being delayed for 2 years, such a huge delay. And then coming back, it's like, what is the norm? We don't know what the norm is because the people that did know the norms are gone. So it's a good thing and a bad thing because it's like you can create a new norm, but also creating new norms doesn't necessarily mean they're good or healthy new norms.
Yeah.
Another one is body image. I think like, when you're on Zoom all the time and just showing your face, like people going out in public, we've seen an increase in like people not being comfortable with their bodies. And
Hmm.
Snapchat, TikTok, all these things have so many filters on them now that just adds to the body dysmorphia piece.
Yeah.
And then the third largest problem I'm seeing is just like being able to time manage and kind of balance everything. Like, I mean, I think I struggled with that too coming out of the pandemic, but
Yeah.
when they're like really just trying to figure out for the first time, it's just a lot harder on them. So not being able to make deadlines or having a lot of anxiety about not making the deadlines or being just kind of on edge with certain things.
Yeah. I could definitely see that, especially I mean, I can relate to the social piece as well. Just being that you remember the kid who didn't want to drink or smoke, and well, what's my piece? Where do I fit in an environment like college where that's all you do on the weekends seemingly.
Mm.
Um, and then
And
you
if you make
take
a group of friends, that's all they want to do. It's
yeah,
like, oh, do I have to do this or can I make new friends or how do I set that boundary?
yeah. And it's so weird that you might have to learn how to do that for the first time because you grew up with your friends through high school, maybe they've always been your best friends. Now you have to choose your friends, you have to set your boundaries. And if they're not the right ones, you kind of have to break up with them,
Yeah.
in a way, or be a little bit stern to say this is what I want and what's going to be good for me. And all being in maybe a new environment if you're a freshman or a sophomore, being that first year student. So that I could imagine it being really tough. And then just with how everything's playing out on social media too, just your life kind of being public, um,
Mm,
could add some extra pressure that students are seeing, or I should look like this or act like this because that's what influencers are doing on
mm,
TikTok, whatever the next one is in a couple months. But
yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I am curious, I want to ask you, because you've been in Greek life for a little bit, is what are some of the cool alcohol education and drug education things you've seen? Or maybe there's some things that you've done that you're pretty proud of. But yeah, how have you seen that substance education play out within Greek life?
So I would say no single program's ever you're never going to learn from a single program.
Yep.
It's the repetition, um, and being able to hear people's stories on, things that have happened. Like we do presentations around like how does this literally affect my body chemically, and like especially around gender and sex dynamics is like women literally if they try to drink the same, their intoxication level is just going to be way higher.
Yeah.
So like literally just the basics. My favorite kind of programming around like kind of that risk prevention is I like to not even talk about anything that's like super crazy. I'm like, what does everyday risk look like? When you ride a bike, what kind of risk prevention plan do you have? You're like, I'm riding a bike. Like, what do you, but like, since you've practiced wearing a helmet, you know, you don't just cross the street without looking both ways, like going down into like the basics of what are you doing every day? Like you drive a car, if you don't put a seatbelt on, that's a choice.
Yeah.
Your risk management prevention. So kind of reframing in a way to like not show risk reduction is not fun, but showing it's like either way it's a risk. You're
Yeah.
like everything you do is a risk.
Right.
It's not
That's
fun to think about things like that all the time, but like once you're actually able to think through things and understand, you don't have to do that cognitive work anymore. I like to think about bystander intervention. I've done that training, like I've been a trainer, gone through the trainings, but I still end up in situations where I'm like, I never had to think through this before.
yeah.
And it's not until you have talked about it or experienced it to kind of process and know what you're going to do in the future. So I
Yeah.
think we need a lot more of that. Um,
Yeah.
like how do you work through things before it even happens? Because sometimes it sounds silly.
Hmm.
Like, oh,
Right.
that's never going to happen, but then it does.
Right. And you don't
Sometimes it
think
just
that
freaks up.
you need a plan for everything, but in reality, if you're practicing this pattern of thought of that, hey, risk is going to happen throughout my life, no matter what my choices are, I'm going to deal with risk, then you can help yourself come up with plans if something were to go wrong. And it's so funny to hear you talk about it. You're in the right field, Donnie. You're you're talking about risk management. It
And you gotta bring it in a different light. Like hate talking about risk management. Sometimes I still do. It's just so much easier when you don't frame it as like being a fun sucker.
yeah,
When
right.
you frame it as like, how am I gonna take care of myself and others, and like how can I change the culture? Like if we had a culture around everyone wears helmets when they ride bikes, I think we'd have less issues with bike accidents. But I feel like the culture is right now, I want to look cool and I want my hair to look good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to mess up my hair.
That's
Exactly.
like that's the same thing. It's yeah, it might be a little bit of a fun sucker, but would you rather, have a good brain and a head moving forward or have your hair look good for that day?
Yeah. And do you want to live in a world where people feel comfortable having messy hair but being safe?
Mhm.
Like that's great. I'll take that. Um, so what's cool too, you said you've done some of the training for your students and for your staff. What is, I guess here's I have a unique question, I think. Um, but I've seen for Greek life, if I go and speak to in a fraternity or anything within the Greek life umbrella, is there's kind of this sliding scale, which is Jake, you're the founder of Party.0. It's these, non-alcoholic parties. And I'm not like a preacher, so I'm not going to preach that you need to make the same decision as me, but I'll make it known that there are thousands of students out there partying and having fun without getting drunk or high. So you always know that's an option. Then there's the other side, which is kind of, we want the bystander intervention. Jake, our students are going to drink, they're going to get wasted. We want you to help save their lives. Where do you feel on the spectrum of education within Greek life? Where would you put your comfort level on, Jake, just save my kids' lives because they're going to drink no matter what, versus they're college students, they're figuring out their future. Is there room to influence where they want to go and how they make choices?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wouldn't say I wouldn't be able to put anyone on a scale. I would just go right down the middle
Yeah.
because it really is who you surround yourself around and like the people that you want. Like even just looking at my experience in undergrad at Oshkosh, it's like I was weary about the whole thing because like I was uncomfortable around alcohol.
Mhm.
And like the fact that my fraternity hosted Party.0 parties and knowing that we do more than just alcohol, like that made me safe. Yeah, they're still gonna have parties with alcohol. Cool, great, fine. as long as we're, being safe and still having a good time. But like just having the alternative for me helped a lot. And there are always going to be people that might never want to be swayed, and there's might be people that get swayed the other way. Like they might be, oh, no alcohol, blah 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 blah, and then something sways them the other way. And I don't know really what the formula or what the influence of that changes, but I do know that at least providing the education gives people the freedom to make the choice and an informed choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on that, Donnie. I think that just allowing them, like you said earlier, different stories, perspectives, information to help them make that better choice for them. That's what it's going to come down to. And we're getting short on time, so I want to respect your schedule. Is there anything that you think, working with Greek organizations, things that people in drug education can do better with to make sure that they're more effective in reaching, Greek students?
Um, I think it's similar with sex education. We can't teach abstinence only
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that always has to happen, but being able to be transparent about, yeah, people are gonna have sex, yeah, people are gonna drink, but there's also options of how do we be safe when we do it, or how do we like have other opportunities to not have to do things as much. So if like every weekend there's 2 parties on Friday, 1 on Saturday, just reducing your drinking to 1 day a week can be significant, especially for brain development between 18 and 22.
Yep.
So I know for me, I think looking back at Party Pono, for example, some people are just turned off. They're like, they're the sober anti-alcoholics. It's like, no, they like when you're on that side of the spectrum, that's how you're gonna view alternative options.
Yeah.
But if you approach it from a, hey, like, do you want to be a part of something where you're gonna be able to do more? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many more fun things you can do when you're sober versus when you're intoxicated or under the influence.
Yeah.
So it's like being able to um, kind of have a both and approach versus you have to pick one or the other, because the both and allows both sides to be able to come together. The one or the other makes you feel like you have to make a choice. Do
Yeah.
I drink or do I not drink? Well, you can drink and not drink different days.
Yeah.
But I think the hard piece is the um like when you're in that new environment is like trying to fit in and being confident with yourself, and it's easy to be confident with alcohol.
Right. Yeah. That's the
and
shortcut.
and if they have more opportunities to like try to be themselves and feel more confident in spaces that like invite that net, we'd have less issues. So I think that's the biggest piece is you can't be black and white with it. You need to provide more gray and like not be as, not that it's intimidating, but sometimes it can be intimidating to be like, where's sober parties?
No, that's really well said, Donnie. I think you're spot on. And even when it comes to influencing people in general, that is a great way to view it, is that I'm not going to preach one area right down the middle and say this is the way, because you're ignoring 90% of the audience who thinks differently than you or who is differently than you and the journey that they're on. Because in reality, there are going to be people who are part of your population who they're going down a certain path, they're testing it out, they're trying new things, and they need to go down that path to figure it out for themselves.
Mhm,
And there's some people who are on the exact opposite and they just need a different choice. And
mhm,
like you said too, with my platform, whenever I speak to Greek flag, I have to tell them like, hey, this is not an anti-alcohol presentation. Even though I don't serve alcohol at my parties, over half the students who come to these parties, they do drink on other nights. So
mhm.
it's not a either or situation. Like you said, it's a both and. I'm here to share one perspective, one story. And if it can help you live a longer, happier, healthier life, then that's fantastic. We spent some good time together. And most importantly, just keep each other safe so that everyone feels comfortable, going through their college experience, getting the most out of it that they possibly can. Because that's what they want. They're paying a lot of money for a college education, but also for that experience. And it's our job to help them, like to come alongside them and make the most of it. And I think that's what's really cool about your position is you're coming alongside them and you're getting to make sure that as they're making choices that could have negative actions, you're that, that older sibling kind of figure to say, but I'll be here with you. No matter what happens, I'll be here with you. And, I'll be rooting for you and helping out along the way.
Yeah, not telling you what to do, but how to do it and your options.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, thanks for having a conversation with me. It's good to be back in touch with you. And I know you got a meeting coming up real soon. So
Yeah. Let me know
appreciate
if
you,
you have any
Donnie.
follow-up questions. Happy to help.
Okay, sounds great. Talk to you later.
See you later, Jake.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Party Talk, where we empower leaders in youth drug prevention. I'll see you on the next episode.